Hi, welcome back. This is the 8th and the last video in our series this month on skill-based intervention. And today we're talking about assignment modifications. Assignment modifications are one of the most commonly known skill-based interventions. And a lot of times modifications are made as part of an IEP process, but I want to make sure that they're one of the last things that we rely on. It's not the only thing that we rely on, but they're added as a supplement to help build skills. In the cognitive world, they might call this scaffolding. And so some people might have heard of scaffolding, but assignment modifications are there to help build endurance or build that scaffolding kind of training wheels while you're learning a new skill. So they kind of help you from falling on your face or feeling uncomfortable while you're learning that new skill. So common assignment modifications that we might have in the school are a calculator. And so the calculator shouldn't necessarily be there to do all of the assignment or all of the questions, but maybe the calculator is used for a portion of the question. So I want you to do the first row by yourself. You can use the calculator for the second and the third row and do the last row by yourself so that they've got some exposure to doing it by themselves, but the calculator is there as a support so that they are still able to practice and get in those opportunities to learn that the other children are getting in to learn as well. And guys, calculators, they're part of life. I've got a calculator on my cell phone, and I promise you, I use it all the time. So being able to be fluent and recognize when you need a calculator is helpful. And so you may also just use a calculator to check work. So I want you to try it, and then I want you to check it. But that does add another step, and typically children that have math disabilities are slow already and calculating and figuring out that answer. And so if you add another step, that makes their assignment even longer. And so you may just want to watch for that as a sole intervention. Having a note taker. So sometimes it's hard for children to process what's being said plus write down what's being said. And so if they're trying to take notes while they're trying to listen, then they're dividing their energy between two tasks, and all the energy is only going to be devoted to one. So they're not listening to understand, they're listening to write, and they're not processing or paying attention to what it is that they're writing. They're just writing meaningless words because they're focused on the writing. And if they have a fine motor deficit, then the writing is hard. And so now they're focused on using those fine motor skills to form the letters. And what you're saying, they're not processing it, and they're not going to be able to interpret what those notes are. Notes are meant to jog your memory, but if you don't have a memory to jog, the notes are meaningless. And so what a note taker is somebody who takes the notes or provides already pre-prepared notes so that the listener can listen and process what's being said rather than focus on writing down meaningless words. Notes, maybe you provide the modification with those note sheets. Assignments, we do very little handwritten. Yes, it's important to have writing skills, but maybe you do the majority of assignments typed and only have some assignments handwritten while they're building up or attending therapy to build those fine motor skill muscles. Also, children with autism have a hard time with perspective taking and social situations, and so they may be more resistant or non-compliant to assignments that are on topics that are not of their specific interest. So I would rather, from my perspective, I would rather have them do a good quality assignment over something that they're interested in and still practicing the skill rather than fighting over what the topic is. So maybe if you're in geography and this child really likes train signals, well, their assignment, rather than discussing a country, can be identifying the different types of train signals in different countries. I had no idea. This was informed to me by one of my kids who is interested in trains, and he told me all of the different train signals and how they sound in different countries, and they're not the same. So learn something new every day, right? But he would learn about different countries, and he would also be doing something that he's interested in. So can you modify the topic of an assignment? And also visual cues. I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, and so dot counting was really popular when I was a kid, and I still, when I count, think about where the dots are on letters. So 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And with 8, they had the dots and then the circle around the dots. I've been pretty successful in life. I am a doctor now, and I've made it through a lot of school, and I still dot count. So if a child needs that modification, that visual cue, as long as you're fading the support or fading the use of that visual cue, maybe you're covering it up at some times during the day, or maybe you just let it get more and more worn over the school year, then that's fine. Some people will need formulas, so an example formula, or maybe they need the formula cue for orders of operation. That's an appropriate modification because then they're learning it correctly the first time. I briefly mentioned errorless learning in one of our last videos, but have you ever learned somebody's name wrong? Oh my goodness, it's so frustrating when you learn the wrong name because then you're continually thinking, what is their name? Is their name Heidi? Is it Hattie? I can't remember. I know it starts with an H, but maybe it's Holly. And so then you're more likely to second guess yourself or call the wrong name. Whereas if you learn the right name first, you're more likely to get it correct every time. And so what these visual assignment modifications or visual supports do is they help you to get it right the first time so that you don't have that error message in your head. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.